course, the official story is false. This is called historiography, where you, from generation to generation, realize that whatever version of the narrative you had from the older accounts probably was focused on particular perspectives and had biases or interests that you don't share anymore. And so the newer accounts, well, they always seem more true at the outset, but then if you keep going for a few more generations, you start realizing that, oh wait, yeah, right, the official count was false, but so is yours. Epistemologically, this is really tricky. If you guys want the big footnoted fat version of this, Peter Novick's That Noble Dream, The Objectivity Question in the American Historical Profession, where he goes through American historiography on the Civil War, from the Civil War to the late 80s, and says each generation of Civil War historians were convinced that they were getting the objective version of whatever had happened in that encounter. But by 1989, nobody was sure about what the story was. It had flipped so many times. What you find out is the retellings of the stories have been a perpetual feature of our histories, even the professional ones from the 19th and 20th centuries. So by the time Peter got to 1980, the book came out a few years before I met him, right? He was learning to use Mosaic as a web browser at that point, which is one of the very first of the web browsers, while working on his Holocaust in American Life book. Yeah, so we're out there on the edge of the epistemology of the past. Right. Conspiracy theory itself is a conspiracy theory in the sense of that the term was invented by the Warren Commission to make us not think that we had knowledge about what happened with John F. Kennedy's assassination. He was definitely assassinated. I think we're clear on that. By whom, right? So no, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. Per the Warren Commission, the CIA forced the phrase conspiracy theory into the public consciousness in the wake of their assassination of Kennedy. So the CIA sets up this destabilizing claim to make sure that nobody investigates properly the causes of the assassination. Therefore, use of this term is a psyop. I don't believe in conspiracy theories. It's like, wait a minute.
That's a mind bender, isn't it? to think that this is an eccentric behavior and something that's socially negative, because a conspiracy theorist can't be a positive thing. No one ever uses it in a positive term. That guy's such a conspiracy theorist. It's never used as a compliment.
The same thing happened to the term revisionist.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the revisionist historians problem, when people are called revisionist historians.
Right. Oh, revisionists are in fact revising the previous version of the story, and that's evil. Michael Hoffman does some nice essays on this and saying it's like revising history is what historians do.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what that one's from?
Have you seen that show? You haven't seen it?
I don't know whether I've seen it.
Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it. So he's finding all of these things, and this is in Tree of Woe's post. He points it out. This is apophenia, the finding connections where other people don't see them. And so it's like, first you notice, then you start going, and this is connected to that, and then this is connected to that, and by the end of it, we have it, juxtaposed with the guy sitting on the moon, and everything is in this vast network, so that even when you're watching Friends, there's flying pyramids in the background, right?
Exactly.
And then you can't stop seeing them. You see all of the connections everywhere, which is, of course, it could make you epiphenic, I suppose. It could make you a conspiracy theorist, or it could just make you a poet.
You're bloody detailed and orientated after a few thousand stanzas. Oh
my gosh, it's all meaningful because the symbolism stacks, right? And there you are in stanza, what did we write today, 77? Oh, that's probably significant.
You can't even watch Friends without seeing an Illuminati pyramid, which I did. So I screenshot it because it was just too funny.
Look, me watching, everyone else watching Friends, me going, ooh, pointing guy, right? Yeah. So, exactly. I mean, this being the danger, and we're saying that, the joke about this is when we are writing our poems, this is always what our writing room is like. In our mythology and symbolism and poetry, we're saying, yes, and the world is meaningful as a creature of our creator, and things point to creator, they point to activities of other people, they are traces left by human behaviors and actions. So shouldn't we try to put them together into meaningful stories?
I think so.
But this I mean, culture depends on this constant reincorporation, right? The reference to such and such, allusion to previous storytelling, and that is intensely satisfying. And you could say that's all apophenia. It's all finding connections where things don't exist. I mean, medieval etymologies are like that, right? It's like if the word, and for goodness sake, a lot of the conspiracy theory etymologies that I hear on the internet are like that too. It's like, well, this word sounds like that, and therefore it proves. And you're like, no. No. Just because you can figure out a connection doesn't mean there's a proof of causation.
Sometimes things are just accidents.
Unless you believe God's directing everything, which is
Which
kind of
could
the
be.
problem of history, right? It's like E. Michael Jones likes talking about the cunning of reason, like, you know, God making good out of disaster, as when Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery, and then he's promoted by Pharaoh, and then he saves his brothers from starving. And so that thing that you intended for evil, the Lord has turned to good. If you have a vision of history in which God is working in those terms, I wonder what effect that has on your conspiracy theories. We go to our favorite conspiracy theorist, which is, of course, the character whose name I don't remember, so we'll just call him Mel, in the movie called Conspiracy Theory.
The fictional Mel.
Did a Johnny Depp. We still haven't done a Mel Gibson stream. And watching Conspiracy Theory was stunned to find that many of the conspiracy theories that are now current were in that movie, and it's from the 90s.
He did well.
Something fishy going on. And one of the fishy things, I mean, there's this whole thing about gravy. Bears watching this video of Owen's community should be a little like, I was like, is that where it came from? The idea of gravy? Because there's gravy throughout the visions that the Mel character is having of all of these things. And he's a taxi driver, and he's always telling people, oh, this and this and this is happening. And of course, it's all these government conspiracies. And you find out that he has in fact been manipulated, but not in quite the way he's like been in some kind of military training program or something, right?
Yeah.
But there's this cartoon of gravy over and over and over again. And then I, apophenically, I hope that's the adjective or adverb, started trying to say maybe that's where Owen got it. Images you gave me. Is that part of the QAnon one, or is that another Trump?
No, I don't know why. It just came into my head.
Okay.
I just thought I would attach it. Sometimes I just do things and I don't really know.
Well, we have to figure them out so that we can do apophenically find the significance and the connections. What I see it in that is the degree to which we can trust Trump to not have been part of all of the other conspiracy theories that we were hoping that he was going to help us escape from.
It was the money thing. You say conspiracy theory, and a lot of people will start talking about the Illuminati and whatever. But essentially, what I found fascinating about that, and I included the Trump thing, I think this is why I did it. I included the money deliberately, okay? Because this is like the most interesting thing about American currency, is that on your money, there is something that is so occult-looking, in your face, crazy symbolism that just makes everything look like it's all under some horrendous structure of hyper-managed conspiracy. And it's like, oh, it's just your money. I'm just going to go out and buy milk with this thing, right? Like that
I think they
fascinates
chose
me.
that symbol purposefully. So Mel is making the entire... Mel gets us into more trouble than anybody else, maybe. Tunnels are on people's minds because of Gaza. Casey's saying the tunnels underbuildings must be filled underpinned for structural support. Yeah, I'm just wondering, so is this, we're building conspiracy theories about what, right? And I don't even know, right? Because, okay, one, it's saying, you know, Jews do X, Y, or Z, and then everybody says, well, these are a particular kind of community. It's not the whole of Judaism. But the way they're reporting on it right now, and the timing, we're suspicious. I wonder if Ari Shafir comments on this too, right? I'm getting there. Yeah, so Casey, kind of like the old stories of 1930s gangsters digging through to one building into a bank to rob. So that does make us sort of wonder. The garbage men noticed they were carrying out a lot of brick and dirt, which then does make you think they realize they're doing something that they shouldn't be within the rules of the city. They just put the refuse in the garbage that the city picks up. Maybe that's how they found out. Okay, yes. And I mean, that's how in the Terry Pratchett story with the dwarves are mining under the city, the watch figures it out because there's carts carrying out the dirt. Yeah. They just spread it around to different trucks so that they go out.
Well, so that's the how. Then there's the why. Now, something that I find very interesting, considering we've just been assaulted with the events between Israel and Gaza, and all of that starting with the intrusion of Palestinians, claimed intrusion of Palestinians through tunnels that they'd created. This gets really tricky because I said in DCR when that first started, and we were being told that the response to the terrorism attacks on October 7th was that the Israelis were going to go and bomb Gaza. And I said, well, they're bombing the crime scene. Now, it seems very callous, but that's what they're doing. not making a claim about who's committed the crime yet.
It is a crime scene.
But if somebody
yes, something
if somebody
terrible
has
happened.
managed to do
Yeah.
something like that between two neighboring properties, where one neighbor has tunneled under the periphery and then gone into somebody else's home and done what they'd done, so we think about it on a small scale, then you would not be destroying the evidence. You would want to know exactly how they managed to do
Yeah.
it. You'd want to know, if you were a country, my assumption is that you would want to know how these people have done this so that they can never do it again, because the complexity of being able to pull that off is so huge that just having the evidence there so you can find out what they've managed to do and to go around all of your military infrastructure, which is, I mean, in the case of Israel, ridiculously advanced. Right. So I thought, no, this is wrong. I mean, obviously it's wrong to be bombing anybody. In the steps that you would take to figure out how they've done what they've done, why would you destroy a crime scene? Like, why would you destroy the only evidence that you have that you're able to figure out how people have done what just done? So this is the problem with covering them up. In the case of what was going on between Hamas in Gaza and Israel, nobody is ever going to be able to do an investigation now, right, because northern Gaza has been flattened. I mean, it is a tunnel. The entire north of that city is destroyed. So no one's ever going to be able to find out for sure how the Palestinians, members of Hamas, managed to invade the boundary of Israel and do that terrorism. Nobody will ever be able to know. So suddenly we have no ability to find out any portion of the story. It's gone. The narrative now is all without any ability to be revised, for good or bad. And I think that's kind of something that popped out at me. With the tunnels in New York City, it's the same thing, because we weren't really given a how, even though the garbage trucks have been noticing the dirt coming out in the trash cans. But a claim of why is not really good enough. For people that are going through that much effort to break civic codes and to do something which is so dangerous, because tunneling under the ground is not like building a fish pond. Serious things can happen. I mean, can you imagine if the walls had caved in on those men while they were down there? There's a lot of people that would have been buried alive. So they've gone to serious amount of effort to build this tunnel. Now, if it's for a religious reason, that's a claim. It's a really interesting claim, because you think, well, if it's a religious reason, they've exposed the residents of the city to an enormous amount of danger by damaging the integrity of the terrain. And so that has to be addressed, even without any of the other stuff. What we've seen is just a complete kind of rage against anybody who is mad at what's happened. No official why given with like a proper investigation, which you can't do if you pour concrete down these tunnels. So that's kind of where my head is at the moment with this whole thing. We're put into a position where the tunnels are being destroyed, and now all we can rely on is hearsay. And it's happened twice in a very short amount of time. Feeds the public paranoia, and it feeds the desire for answers and conclusion. But if you can't get a proper one, then all you're left with is hearsay. And then we're left with journalists creating narratives about what's happened, right?
Well, because everyone is, sort of triggered to apophenia, trying to find the connection. Well, I'm thinking of, with the JFK assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused is killed so soon. There's evidence being covered up. Why? Why is there evidence being covered up?
Like, I know this sounds a bit nuts, and it's a crazy sentence to say, but like, it could have been some Jews selling crack in a tunnel. We don't know. Obviously, you would lie if you were selling crack. So you're going to tell everybody you want to get to the mikvah. All right, but actually you were selling crack. Problem is, because you covered it up, now everyone thinks you were trafficking people and children in the tunnel.
The conspiracy theory version of whatever's going on in the synagogue with the tunnels is somebody wants people spinning conspiracy theories about what was going on in the tunnels because they need to activate certain kinds of other narratives to get people upset, which I've certainly seen. We're now going to trigger all of the old conspiracy theories about this subgroup to do what? In the Middle Ages, when the plague hit, there were lots of rumors about Jews, for example, poisoning wells. And the Pope said, don't be ridiculous. They're dying too.
If you go along with that surge of energy around the crisis, then you get swept up in the emotion, and that emotion gets redirected into something else, which is potentially more horrifying. That's because we're not allowed to question it. And I think that's part of what is happening on purpose. It's being flipped around as something that we're all supposed to be looking at, because look at it, because media are talking about it. Look, but don't ask questions or you're a bad person. Now that has a very interesting psychological effect on people, especially people that have a lot of tension. They need to get it out and they need to redirect it onto some somebody, because a lot has been happening in the last few months that would connect a particular community to negative feelings.
That gives us a proper taxonomy of be wary of events that are trying to trigger your emotions and make you look over there rather than over there.